so excited that you're here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. This is going to be fun.
So the last time I saw you, which was before the pandemic, you were a lawyer. I think you were in a suit.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe coming from court. And now you are a creator. Your videos have been viewed over 300 million times. You have over 1 million followers on TikTok and Instagram. And you're known now for creating incredibly intricate, inspiring pasta in different colors and different shapes. I mean, my kids are crazy for it. I'm crazy for it. So what happened? How did we go from there to here?
Yes, good question. So I'm Danny. You can see Danny Loves Pasta. So I was a lawyer.
Say you have an incredible book that just came out.
Thank you. So I was a lawyer for 10 years here in the city. I graduated from Columbia Law School like 10 or 11 years ago. I started as a corporate lawyer at a big firm. It was not right for me. I did not enjoy that world at all. And after a couple years of that, I switched and I worked for a nonprofit here in Manhattan, and I was a housing attorney. So I was helping people who were being evicted. I was going to court every day, fighting to keep people in their homes. I loved that job. Honestly, I thought I would do that job forever. And then when COVID hit, we went remote. The courts closed. I was doing Zoom court for a while. A couple months into COVID, my daughter was born. And I went on parental leave. The Christmas of 2020, we were home. It was the first Christmas of my life I didn't go home for Christmas because of, home to see my parents because of COVID and my daughter and everything. So every year when I was growing up, my grandmother would make fresh pasta for Christmas. So I made that for Christmas. My husband in the back, who's a Googler, was there. It was just the two of us and our daughter. The next week, I had to return to work. The same week I was returning to work, my grandmother passed away very unexpectedly, and I was so very, very close with her. And we were new parents and not sleeping, and it was a lot happening in my life at that time. A lot of not great things. So I just kept making pasta like at night after my daughter would go to bed. I'd be like just wanting something to do for myself, wanting something to clear my mind, to feel close to my grandmother. And I started posting videos of it on social media. I started using weird ingredients to make all the colors. Like all the colors you see on the cookbook are all natural ingredients, vegetables, spices, things like that. I started experimenting, making fun, colorful shapes. So yeah, kind of took off from there.
I have to say, as a fellow parent, in those first few months, if my partner's coping mechanism had been to stay up all night making fresh pasta, but I'm very sorry for the circumstances that led up to it. So you started making pasta, you started adding the colors, but what was the how did you kind of end up with these amazing shapes, these amazing designs? Like, what were the inspirations for how you got started?
Yeah, I started just learning how to make fresh pasta, learning how to make traditional shapes, bow tie and penne and things like that. And then there's a couple ingredients like spinach. You can put spinach in pasta. That's pretty traditional. So I was experimenting a little bit with that, with beets. And then someone on TikTok left me a comment that said, "Can you make pasta out of Oreos?" And I was like, oh, what? Whatever. And then they did that thing, maybe you've seen that on social media, where people are like, day 2 of asking for Oreo pasta, day 3 of asking for Oreo pasta. So I was like, all right, fine. So I ground up some Oreos. I made it into fresh pasta. It was not something I've made since. It was a little weird tasting, but I posted it, people liked it, and that was kind of like, oh, you know what? TikTok is like a weird place. I can just kind of do anything. So that's when I started doing more traditional ingredients, weird shapes. This spring I did a whole series of ravioli that looks like cartoon characters for my daughter. So
does she have a favorite?
Well, she loves Peppa Pig, so the inspiration was I made Peppa Pig ravioli. And then there's a recipe in the book for ravioli that looks like chocolate chip cookies, but it's actually, real savory food. She likes that one too.
Yeah, my son, that's next on our list. Yeah. So we cooked from the cookbook recently for the very first time. My son and I made pasta, and I have to say I have avoided making fresh pasta forever because it just sounds really scary and intimidating and something you go to fancy restaurants for. But the second we got your book, my son loved it. And he was like, I want to make this, I want to make this, I want to make this, I want to make the chocolate chip cookie pasta. I was like, well, let's start easy. And it was great. It was not as hard as I wanted. Your instructions were fantastic. Is that something that you encounter a lot, the kind of anxiety of pasta making? Do you find...
Yes. People think pasta making is very intimidating. Like, it feels like a big project. We made it as a kid a few times, and it felt like it took all day and like took over the house. But it is not that hard. It's just flour and eggs. I'm in my cooking demonstration, I'm going to make some dough in the food processor. It takes like 3 minutes. It's very, very easy. And I had to learn how to make it fast, because usually when I was making it, I'd have to do everything: make the pasta, film it, edit it, post it during my daughter's nap time. So, I never got around to the cleaning up part. That's what Steve is for. But it's not as intimidating. I always tell people that, like, I felt that way. Like, it felt like a big project, but it's actually pretty simple.
Do you have any tips for first-time pasta makers?
Yeah, start with the basic dough, just flour and eggs. Usually people run into trouble because their dough is very sticky. Like, people write to me, like, I tried to make pasta once, all the noodles were very sticky, I boiled it, like, they all clumped together, I was eating like a blob of dough. Usually that's because your dough is too wet. So you'll see when I make it, like, I'm always adding more flour. Don't be afraid of adding more flour. It's not like a bread dough, which can be very sticky. Like, pasta dough shouldn't be that sticky. And then you can roll it out with a rolling pin. You don't need a pasta maker. Roll it out, take a knife, just cut it into strips, and you've got it.
I have to say, your book on that front is so clear. It was incredibly helpful on what to do if it was sticky or too dry or crumbly, etc. It was I felt like my hand was being held in just the right way.
Good. That's what I was hoping for.
What about tips for people who are, you went from a lawyer to a creator, pretty instinctively, it seems. But do you have, like, looking back, tips for other people who are trying to show their skills in this space, or or any just horror stories? I don't know, like things about that experience.
Yeah. I mean, I have to be careful because I'm here at Google. I can't tell you all to quit your jobs and become
fair enough
pasta makers, even though it has been great. So yeah, I had a very traditional job, and for me, it started just as a hobby. It started as something I did for myself, posting it. I didn't think anything would come from it. Like, honestly, at the time, I did not know anyone on TikTok. I'm a little older than the average TikToker, and I figured, let me just make this account. I'll post my pasta stuff there. In a week, if I give up, I'll just delete the account. It's like it never happened. Like, I didn't tell anyone I was doing it. It really was just me to have a creative outlet. So I would say do something you really enjoy. Like, on social media, a lot of people get caught up in trying to chase a trend or do what they think is popular, and then it just comes across as not authentic. Then they give up. You need to have something that you actually enjoy, like you're doing it for yourself, because it can be hard. I've been doing it now for 3 years. Like, I post almost every day. Like, it's hard to keep coming up with new pastas and keep coming up with new ideas and keep finding the time. So it has to be something you enjoy doing.
It is a full-time job. It's a different full-time job.
Yeah.
Is there anything that has carried over from lawyering? Like, do you think that there's anything that being a lawyer that actually made you better at being a pasta, kind of a pasta artist?
Well, I do a lot with contracts, actually, because now now I have a manager who handles it. But before I had a manager, I had to, like, deal with all these brand deals and stuff and do contracts. I've had some of the other, like, content creators who now I've gotten to know virtually know that I used to be a lawyer. So one of my friends got a cease and desist letter from a brand, so I called up the lawyer, like, I was like, got to use my lawyering skills. So every once in a while, I'm still licensed, so every once in a while.
But maybe nothing about the, like, actual task or.
Well, I felt like in the beginning, like the first year and a half I was still working, I felt like it was a good balance. Like, I'd be working on law stuff, and then I had this creative outlet. Like, I kind of felt like they fueled each other. I needed both in my life.
What's your favorite pasta that you've made?
Well, there's one recipe in the book that I have been making for a long time, even before I started this, which is, I call it mini lasagna. They're little lasagnas in little ramekins.
So good. I have not worked up to that yet.
Bowls. And that just uses, store-bought lasagna noodles. But I started doing that a long time ago because Steve and I would sometimes make platters of lasagna, but we would want different ingredients, and I eat meat and he doesn't, so we try to, like, divide it halfway through, and then, like, my stuff would seep onto his side. So anyway, we just started doing our own, and now we have a 3-year-old, so she can put in her own ingredients. So that's a fun one, and you don't need any pasta skills. And then in the book, there's a chapter on sauces, and I did a lot of, like, for me, especially after spending a lot of time making fresh pasta, the sauces, I want something that can come together quickly, but be good, healthy. So all those recipes, you don't need to use fresh pasta. You can use a box of pasta. So I feel like even if you never want to make fresh pasta, as long as you like pasta, you can still get something out of the book.
Well, on that note, I would love to make some pasta. And I want to make sure everybody knows that there will definitely be time for questions after we've made some pasta.
Time for questions. And I have these little like Danny Loves Pasta spoons I can give out to everyone. And my one plug, if you buy a copy of the book, or you got it on Amazon or something, I have these like book plates, which are these things my publisher made that stick into the book, so I can sign them and you can put it in your book when you get it.
And if you haven't gotten the book, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is available, it is out, and it is delightful.
All right, we're going to be making ravioli al uovo, which is in the book, and we're starting with a fresh pasta dough. So this is my fast way of doing it. I'm doing it in the food processor. You'll see it's very fast. Hopefully it works. But a basic fresh pasta dough is 1 egg per 100 grams of flour. So I'm going to do 4 eggs and 400 grams of flour. I'm using all-purpose here. I'm going to put a little semolina flour too because we have some, but you can just use all-purpose or mix. And normally, you can do the old-fashioned way, which is what I often do. You make the pile on the counter, you use your fork to stir it up, but the food processor does all the work for us. And then ravioli al uovo is ravioli with a egg yolk in the middle. Then you cook it not too much so it stays runny, so it's like a runny egg yolk ravioli. And I have a cheese filling, so the egg yolk and the cheese kind of melt together. And I'm making a butter sauce, so this is like a very decadent dish. And it feels very fancy, but I'm making it here in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, so it's not something that's hard to do, but it is kind of a fun one. All right, so you just put everything in. You can also do this in a KitchenAid if you have a stand mixer. You can use the dough hook. And you just run it for, honestly, 30 seconds, a minute, until it starts to come together. And if you're making it for the first time, I would say do the old-fashioned way so you can figure out the right feel of the dough. Like this is a little bit dry, I can just tell, because I've made hundreds and hundreds of batches of dough. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of water. But you can always be adjusting. That's my biggest tip. You can always adjust the moisture. So then you just need to knead it together into a ball of dough. It's already really been kneaded. Like the kneading helps develop the gluten. If you think of a bite of pasta, like that nice chewy feel, that's because it has gluten, which is why gluten-free pasta is a little tricky. But so kneading the dough develops the gluten. I usually let it rest for half an hour to an hour. That helps develop the gluten. But this already, has been very fastly kneaded, but you need it to come together into a dough. And usually I wrap it or cover it and let it rest for half an hour or so. And during the resting time, it continues to develop. But I'm going to do a little TV trick and swap it out for some that I already made. But you see this, like that took no time at all. We have a ball of pasta dough. So you can make this anytime. All right, so now I'm going to swap it out with the pasta maker too. So I often use this pasta attachment to a KitchenAid, but like I said, you can roll pasta dough with a rolling pin. You can roll it, with a wine bottle, whatever you have. You just need it to get flat. So pasta maker, usually it comes with one attachment that rolls it flat and one attachment that cuts it into fettuccine. But really the main point of a pasta maker is just to get it flat. So you don't need one. So I have also made a few colors here. I'm going to try to do something a little bit fun. So all the colors that I use are all made with different vegetables and spices. So the red is beets, orange is roasted red pepper, yellow is turmeric, green is spinach, blue is something called butterfly pea flower, and purple is cabbage, or purple sweet potato.
How strong are the flavors?
Usually the flavors are pretty subtle, but it depends on the ingredient. I think roasted red peppers comes through a lot. In order to make black pasta dough, I use squid ink, and that comes through, so if you don't like that seafoody taste, that's not a great one. But you can see, like, you just roll it flat. With a pasta maker, you just keep rolling it. Each time I turn the knob, it's getting thinner and thinner. I'm just gonna go like somewhere in the middle. Sorry. How are we doing on time?
I think
Good?
okay.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I know I tried to like pack a lot into this cooking demonstration because we're making the ravioli, cooking it, and the sauce, but I think we'll be okay. All right. So I have this pasta dough, a sheet of pasta dough. I'm gonna make ravioli al uovo. So I'm starting with a filling. This is a ricotta and pecorino filling. It's pretty simple. It's the one I make most of the time. It's in the book. It's just a cheesy filling. It's easy, simple. You mix them together with some lemon, salt, and pepper. And for this dish, we're making a little bit of a nest. We're making a nest, and the egg yolk is going to sit right in the middle. So I'm going to do two. I'm going to make a circle, just like that, and then a little spot for the egg yolk. All right. So now I'm going to separate these eggs. Put the yolk right in the middle. Hopefully they don't break because I'm doing it very quickly. All right, one. And then I'm going to roll another sheet of dough and put it on top. For the second one, I'm going to use my colors. So,
Do you keep the dough thicker when there's a lot inside it? Or does that not really matter?
That's a good question. Ravioli is tricky because, especially something like this, you don't want it to cook too long because then the egg is going to cook fully and you won't get the runny yolk. So, but then if you roll it too thin, it's very delicate, and as you're transferring it around, it'll just break. So, usually a pasta maker like the KitchenAid 1 is the widest setting, 8 is very thin. I usually go to a 6. That's like almost all the way, but not quite all the way. If that makes sense. All right. So let me roll the top sheet, and I'm going to add my colors to it. So a few months ago, I made Peppa Pig ravioli, like I said, because my daughter loves Peppa Pig, and it's kind of on my to-do list for a long time. And then people started requesting other characters, and they were asking me for. So I did SpongeBob and Pikachu. Someone asked for Danny DeVito. I did Danny DeVito.
I saw Harry Styles.
Harry Styles. I did SZA. I did
Minion, maybe?
Minion. There was a trend at the time on TikTok of doing like this girl from the Lorax movie who's twerking at the end of the movie. For some reason that took over Twitter or TikTok, so I did that. And so for a lot of these, I use cookie cutters. I use cookie cutters a lot to make ravioli, but I could not find Danny DeVito cookie cutters anywhere. So now I 3D print my own cookie cutters. So that allows me to make a lot. So this is a custom one I did for Google today. Hopefully it works.
What's the most complicated shape or design that you've ever made?
There's one in the book that I did a couple years ago. It's ravioli that looks like succulents, little succulent cactuses. And I did it in 2021, and it was popular. So I knew I wanted to include it in the book, but it's like, I can show you. It's kind of hard to make, so I had to include like a little diagram and everything, but people have been sending me pictures of the ones that they've been doing, so like I said, it's maybe not as hard as I thought. Anyway, they look like little cactuses, and they're filled with cheese, and you can make them. I even include a little stencil to make it really easy, so I tried to make it very user-friendly.
I think I remember seeing that you even had Steve making some of those.
Yeah, Steve made it once. I made them for the Rachael Ray Show, so they were a popular one. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of each color because I'm only doing a little bit.
We've got time. We're good.
We're good. All right, and these are my cookie cutters that I had made. I've got 4 pieces. Maybe you'll be able to tell what it is. This one goes on top, so you'll see in a second. So this is, the normal pasta dough is pretty this pale yellow. So this is turmeric to make it really bright yellow. So turmeric, to answer your earlier question, you can kind of taste the turmeric. But something like spinach or beets, the taste is very subtle.
Was it hard to translate all of this into a cookbook? What was the process of writing a cookbook like?
Yeah, it was tricky because, like most people who cook, when you cook, you're adding something, you're tasting it, you're not always measuring exactly what you're doing. So for a lot of the sauce recipes, my editor was like, no, you need to put in exactly what it is. You need to imagine that someone has never cooked before, they're following your recipe, it has to be exact. So it was a lot of testing, a lot of tweaking, a lot of making it once, adding a little bit more cheese, making it again. Thankfully, my family was game for eating a lot of pasta. Yeah, so it was a lot of testing. And then, so I wrote this all over last summer. It was pretty solitary, like I wrote it. I didn't have a co-writer or anything, I wrote it at home. Then we did an 8-day photo shoot where I made everything in the book. We photographed it. And then we went through editing, so we finished it at the end of last year. So for like 6 months, I've just been waiting for it to come out. And then it came out this summer. I have this on too.
I imagine after making every pasta in the book, you had a lot of people over for dinner.
We've had some pasta dinner parties. Thankfully, pasta is pretty universally liked. It's not. All right, so I've got my colors here. I'm going to try this. And I had to mark my cookie cutters because I forgot the color. I didn't want to forget the color scheme of the Google logo. All right, let's hope this works. What goes on the bottom? Green. Okay. So anyway, I 3D print these and then just cut them in the dough. So there's a recipe in the book about how to use cookie cutters to make ravioli. It's very simple. And like I said, that is kind of how I started taking off. Once I started doing less traditional pasta is when I started getting a little more attention. All right, so I'm also going to turn on the water. I don't want to forget that. And so I'm making a brown butter, hazelnut, and sage sauce, which is very simple. You just melt the butter until it becomes brown butter. So brown butter is when the milk solids and butter start to separate and they get nice and toasty. Leads to a very beautiful brown color and scent and flavor. So we'll let that go.
One of the biggest surprises for me was just how fast you can make pasta. My son was like, I want to start with ravioli. And I said, I really think we should start with spaghetti. And he was like, no, if we're doing this, I want to make ravioli, which he'd never even had before. He's never liked ravioli before. But we were able to make it and have it for dinner that night really easily. And he now likes ravioli, so thank you for that.
Yeah, you can, it's not that hard to make. With ravioli, you can add vegetables into the filling, you can add vegetables into the dough. If you have kids, you can sneak in some extra veggies. There's a whole chapter in the book on different ravioli fillings. So, yeah, it's not as hard as people think. All right, this is getting a little sloppy, but there we go.
It's amazing.
So fresh pasta dough freezes very well. If I'm making SpongeBob ravioli, I don't always make every color from scratch. Our freezer is full of pasta doughs in every color, and I'll just take out the pasta dough that I need for that particular video. It's very easy.
Does your daughter help you?
Yeah,
does she like pasta?
She likes to be in the kitchen. She likes to play with the dough. Oops, sorry. Oh, she's only 3, so it's more
maybe
of a play
not
thing
as
for
much
her.
Help as
Right. All right. You get the idea here. These Google logos. All right. So then I'm going to put the layer back on top. I'm going to add a little bit of water so that 2 layers stick.
And do you have to you have to do the same for the bits of logo too?
Pasta dough is pretty sticky.
Yeah.
If it's, it dries out quickly, so if it's been sitting around, it'll start to dry out, but if it's fresh, it's pretty sticky. All right.
That's amazing.
There we go. So we've got our cheese in the middle. We've got our egg in the middle. We've got our little wonky little Google logos. And that's pretty much it. If you make it at home, you don't have to do the G's. You can just do it regular, and you'll see like that process was very quick, and these are pretty big. I was a guest chef at a dinner club at Columbia a few months ago, and we did a whole pasta tasting menu, and we made everyone these. And so we had to make a whole bunch of these very fast, and they're always very impressive because you'll see like you have the yolk running everywhere, like they're kind of fancy, but they're actually very simple to make. And ravioli al uovo was developed in the 70s at a restaurant in Italy. And so in the book, I did a lot of research because every recipe I wanted to have a little food fact or something. So I did not invent this recipe. It's traditional, but it's from the 70s, so it doesn't have a long history. But
what kinds of pasta did you make with your grandmother? Which felt
my grandmother always for Christmas would make cavatelli, which is often just made with flour and water, and it's hand rolled. You just roll it like with your thumb. She used to put ricotta in the dough too. So it's all right, I'll show you my little G here. This is the Google pasta we have. I did it kind of quickly, so it doesn't line up perfectly, but you can see. And we're gonna cook them. Hopefully the parts don't fall off. Let's see. All right. So I'm gonna throw these in here while our sauce is cooking. And fresh pasta cooks a lot faster than regular pasta. So a box of pasta may take, 8 or 10 minutes. Fresh pasta is usually done in like 2 or 3 or 4. This, I rolled it kind of thick. It may take a little bit longer, but
whenever I cook fresh pasta, I don't know, like, am I supposed to be pushing it into the water so it stays submerged? Like, I can see them floating.
Yeah, they're floating a little.
Or are you just like, it's fine?
It's fine.
Okay.
Because once this water starts bubbling, it'll, like, mix it all up.
Okay.
All right, so our brown butter is starting to bubble as well. You kind of have to watch it because it goes from toasted to burnt very quickly. But on the bottom of the pan will be little
Oh my God, that
specks.
smell. It smells so good.
And brown butter is great in baked goods. There's one recipe in the book that is not pasta, and it's brown butter chocolate chip cookies. And I included it at the insistence of my husband Steve, who said, like, you have to include this, these cookies are so good. So there's one non-pasta recipe using brown butter. And you just have to watch it. Once you start to see little brown bits, you know it's done. And I'm going to throw in, so I chopped some hazelnuts. I'm going to throw that in. And as that cooks, the oil of the hazelnuts releases a little bit and starts to flavor. And we have the sage here. I'm going to pick some sage and throw that in. Brown butter and sage is a very traditional combination. And depending on how long you cook it, like I could have added it earlier, it would have gotten really crispy. But it's pretty simple.
Are there certain pasta shapes that are better for certain sauces?
Yeah. With every pasta shape in the book, I did include pairs well with which sauces. But you think of something like a ragu, you need a really thick pasta with that meaty sauce. So rigatoni is very traditional. Or you think of like a linguine and clam sauce, like a linguine and clams, which has maybe a butter sauce or a white wine sauce. You can have a thinner noodle. So you do kind of try to think about the noodle integrity a little bit. So if you make a brown butter sauce at home, if you can, make it in a pan that has a stainless steel bottom so you can start to see the brown little bits. It's a little harder, but this is not close yet. This needs a few more minutes. Yeah, so you can use brown butter in everything. It's easily up levels your baked goods, or even in Rice Krispie treats, use brown butter instead of just melted butter. It's so good. All right, so those are cooking.
What's been the biggest surprise about this whole thing? About the last few years, about kind of arriving, maybe it's this, maybe it's having a book out there and and having it manifest in that, but...
I think for me, because this whole journey was so, unexpected in a way, I really just try to embrace whatever comes. I feel like who knows? A year from now, this could all go away. I'm back to being a lawyer, and this will have been like a fun detour in my life. Or I could be doing this forever, and this was just an amazing start. I don't know. I'm just trying to embrace everything that comes. Embrace writing a book. Embrace being able to do things like this.
Yeah. What's next? Is there like another shape that you're like working on in your mind? Are you kind of constantly walking around looking and being like, oh, I could make that building out of pasta? You know, like, are you?
Yes. I'm constantly thinking I can make that pattern. I can make that. What's the next pasta series? I did cartoons. I'm thinking, I don't know if there are any Bravo fans here, but I'm thinking maybe doing a series of iconic Bravo moments in pasta. We'll see. I am trying to, I have a website that's almost ready to go, but I've just been delinquent in adding content to it. But I'm trying to build a website where all my recipes can live. I'm trying to sort of expand beyond just pasta in a way. I feel like I've done a few recipes that are weeknight meals, quick and easy, and people are always looking for those parents, or if you're working hard and you get home, you don't have a lot of time to cook, but you still want something fresh. So I've been doing more of those lately.
Make sure those Rice Krispie treats end up
something like that. I started maybe a month ago, a series on YouTube for this channel called Chef's Kiss, which just started, was looking for different chefs. And my show is called Is It Postable? And it's all right, the first half is trying to take a weird ingredient and make it into pasta. And the second half is then teaching a real actual recipe for a sauce you can do. So I did Happy Meal pasta, gummy worm pasta, chocolate chip cookies pasta, but actual chocolate chip cookies. So it's got a little weird. I think they're aiming for like a younger audience, but been doing that. So just trying to keep busy. All right, so we have our ravioli here, and I'm just gonna spoon on some sauce. You can see some of the brown bits have formed. So that's really it. So, fresh pasta is intimidating, but we just took it from scratch to a final dish in 20 minutes? So
that's amazing.
It's definitely possible.
This looks incredible. And
yeah. All right. I should cut into it because that's the whole point. Here's my knife. Here it is. Yeah. I'm using a giant knife, but okay.
Oh, hang on. Let's hold up the.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I should move this so you can see the G.
It's gorgeous.
I don't want the butter to spill, but you can see it. It held up. The colors held up pretty well. Simple, right?
Amazing.
And it's kind of a fun, impressive one for your friends if you're having a dinner party. Like, oh, fresh pasta from scratch, and you did this.
It's incredible.
Sorry, but you can do it quickly, and they're big, so everyone only needs like one, maybe two. All right, so let me cut into it. Hopefully, I didn't overcook it. There we go.
Oh my God.
We have a runny yolk. Some people are turned off by the thought of a runny yolk, so I apologize.
Sounds delicious.
It is cooked. You saw me. It cooked. The cheese melts a little bit. So
Who only brought one fork? Oh, I know what happened.
You've got cheese, butter, and egg yolk. It's not like a, quick snack, but that's it. It's very simple.
Speak for yourself. This looks like a quick snack to me. Well, this is amazing. Unreal.
Yeah. Easy. Feels decadent. Fresh pasta.
Does.
Again, you can leave off the colors, just do a simple one. And that's it.
I think this is amazing. I'm totally inspired. I think we should open it up to questions for the audience too.
Yeah.
Your pasta is like artwork. So in addition to your background as a lawyer, did you have a background, like were you a talented artist before this? Because I don't think I could pull that off.
I think you could. I think you could. I honestly don't consider myself that artistic of a person. I don't have an artistic background. I think I was always very creative, like I had a lot of weird ideas all the time. But in terms of like actual proficiency as an artist, it was not something I always excelled in or anything. But for this process, it was really starting simple. Like I've now spent a few years learning and doing this every single day, making pasta. But even some of the recipes I did early on, some of the shapes, I I honestly feel like anyone could do this. I don't feel like I have any special culinary talent or artistic talent that makes this out of reach for everyone. So, I tried to include all the clear instructions in the book to be like, you do not need any special skills to do this. And like I said, even the succulent ravioli, which I think was probably the hardest one, people have been sending me pictures making it. So it's definitely possible. I have faith in each and every one of you. You could do it. Yeah.
I actually have like 2 questions because I want to troubleshoot through you.
Sure.
How do you keep it from drying out? No matter I wrap it in plastic, I feel like it's good when I put it in there and I only wait and then it always feels dried out.
Yeah, fresh pasta does dry out pretty quickly. If I'm working on a shape, let's say with multiple colors and it's taking me a while, I usually have a spritzer bottle of water and I spray it. Because once it starts to dry, then you can't really, you can't really bend it anymore. So I usually spray it down. And then you don't have to if you cut pasta into noodles or something, you don't have to let it dry fully before you cook it. Sometimes if I make fettuccine and let it dry, it gets very brittle. So usually what I do is I either cook it right away or I freeze it. Once the pasta's made, you have it all laid out, you can put it in the freezer. I freeze it on a cookie sheet so it's not touching. And then once it freezes in an hour, then I just put it in a plastic bag or a freezer bag or something. So I usually don't purposely ever dry it. And if it does dry out, I spray it. Yeah. And
do you find the flour what is the easiest flour you found to work with? Is it semolina 100%? Is it, I know you use all-purpose. But...
Yeah, so I think it's fine to use all-purpose. What I usually do and what I put in the book is a mix of 00 flour. So 00 flour is like a white flour, but it's more finely ground. So it gives the fresh pasta a very smooth feel. And then I mix maybe 3/4 of that and 1/4 of semola flour. Semola is a semolina flour, but also more finely ground. So semolina flour is more of a yellow flour. And if you look at a box of pasta, it's usually all semolina flour. Fresh pasta is usually 00 flour, and I usually do a mix.
And I sent my husband to the grocery store with the ingredients, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to get on the flour side, but it's right there in our local grocery store.
Yeah, most grocery stores nowadays have 00 flour. Sometimes it's called pizza flour or pasta flour or 00 flour. Yeah, you get it.
Is there another? Yeah. Oh, yeah, right here. Sorry. That'd be great. Yeah.
Has there been a design that you thought you were excited about and then failed in a funny or amusing way?
Yeah. When I reached 1 million followers on TikTok, I wanted to do something special, and I had bought little sheets of gold leaf, edible gold leaf, and I made tortellini, and I was going to put the gold leaf on it. It's going to be very fancy. First of all, gold leaf is so hard to work with. I don't know why anyone would ever have, but if you ever have, it is as soon as you touch it, it sticks, and it sticks to itself. It comes in a nice little a stamp size sheets, but they just crumple and stick immediately. So you have to be very careful when you use them. And then once I put them on the tortellini, they looked pretty good. But once I cooked them, this is my own fault. The gold of the gold leaf and the yellow of the pasta color, they look so similar that you couldn't even see them anymore. So that was kind of a waste. But I think maybe one day I'll try it again. But I didn't even post that one.
Maybe put it on after you cook it.
Yeah, I know, that was my thought. Cook it, or you start it with a different color base to add it.
Wait, was it a gold themed shape too? Or
no, it was just tortellini, which is one of my favorite shapes to make. And the gold was sort of on the top triangle part of the tortellini, but
a little hat.
It didn't work. Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the aspects of what you do that have enabled you to be so successful?
I think, one, a lot of my videos even early on went viral because it's kind of eye-catching, it's different, people aren't used to seeing pasta in a weird color, a weird shape. But ultimately, when I really hit my stride and I really grew much faster was a few months in when I made a video where I did a voiceover telling my story of why I make pasta, why, what my grandmother meant to me, being a new dad, and how it's passing on the traditions from my grandmother to my daughter. And that video brought me a lot of new followers, and that is when I started getting a lot of messages from people being like, I cook the food from my childhood, or I want to learn food that my grandmother made or someone in my past made. People really connected with that. And so in the beginning, it was just, I was going viral, but I wasn't really growing, because it was just like, oh, look at that cool pasta, move on, swipe, swipe, swipe. Once I started putting more of my story and personality into it, that is when people more connected with it. Yeah. And then being consistent, I try to post every day during the week, and just like keep doing more, pumping out more content is part of it.
Do you ever get tired of it?
I never really get tired of it. Like, honestly, I love making the pasta. I love coming up with the ideas. The hard part is, this is true for probably everyone in this room, is just finding the time to do everything you want to do. Especially as I started doing more brand deals, working on the cookbook, like, it's hard to find time where I can just be in the kitchen and make something. That is what I love doing more than anything. But it can be hard to find the time.
It must be hard to go on vacation. You bring your KitchenAid with you?
I have flown across the country with my KitchenAid and with dough and everything. But sometimes I try and just make a bunch of videos ahead of time so I can sort of pace them out.
That makes a lot more sense than what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Danny. Thank you for coming. As a content creator, when you're hitting a roadblock, what do you do? How do you get out of a creative roadblock?
Yeah, that's a good question. And now social media is so algorithm based, you can be performing really well and then you're just not connecting, or your videos are not being pumped out, or something like that, or you're burnt out. So part of it is I will re-edit a lot of old content, especially if I don't have time. Now I have 3 years worth of videos. I have things that were fun to make and performed well, but I posted them 2.5 years ago. People have forgotten about them or never saw them. So I will re-edit a lot, especially if I am going through a period where I don't have time to make a lot of new stuff. I'll re-edit it with a trending sound, or try to fit something that's happening culturally. Doing a lot of compilation videos of, here's how I did all the colors. People ask a lot of questions in the comments, and it's a lot of questions that I've answered before, so I already have sort of something ready to go. So I'm not always making a new video from scratch 5 days a week. I'm doing old content. Part of it is taking breaks, definitely. There are weeks when I don't post, or I only post once, just because I have other things going on, or I don't necessarily have something ready to go. And then part of it for me is just trying to get back to what I really loved about doing in the first place. So sometimes when I am feeling like I don't really like what I've been doing lately, or I'm not as excited about the content, I try to go back to the basics and do something simple with pasta. That is really what I started with. Yeah.
Is there a color that you haven't been able to make that you really want to?
Yeah, it's really hard to get like a bright neon color using natural ingredients. You can you can use something called blue spirulina, which is an algae, to get a nice bright blue. But I was trying to do Barbie pasta, and you can do lots of pinks. You can use beets, you can use dragon fruit, but to get a nice bright neon pink is very hard. Yeah. Not
a color that appears in nature
quite
as easily.
You have to fake it a little.
Maybe flowers, like flowers.
Yeah. Actually,
but they change when you cook.
To get the blue, you can use blue spirulina, or you can use butterfly pea flower, which is a flower that people dry and then brew into a tea. So you can use different flowers and things. Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? No? Yes? Was that no? This is amazing. This is so delicious. It's so exciting to have you here. And if there's anybody here who hasn't gotten the book, I cannot recommend it highly enough. My daughter's coming back from camp this weekend. She's excited to make the trans flag ravioli. The cookie ravioli is next up. I just needed to get one of these. And also just like build my confidence.
You can do it.
The book makes it really easy. No,
yeah,
I really think I can. So,
yes, thank you. And thank you to Mary Hope, and thank you to Google and everyone here. If you're here in person, you can take one of the spoons, or I can sign a book plate if you're going to buy the book. But Thank you so much for having me.
This is
It's
so
fun.
awesome.
Yeah. It was fun.
And delicious.
Yeah.